Hi everyone! I wanted to quickly go over a little walkthrough of the 3-1 Milestone 1 magazine advertisement project. This is your only assignment for the week, but keep in mind this is part of your milestone project that we'll be working on continuously through the course. So this is the Fresh Fair Farms campaign. So this will be the first piece of that campaign, and this will be a print ad. So highly recommend clicking into the guidelines and rubric, and this is where you'll find all the necessary information that you'll need to apply to this ad. So make sure you're reading through the overview and scenario here. You've got the directions, which talks about the 3 campaign deliverables: magazine ad, digital animated ad, and seamless social media carousel ad. So what we're working on this week is this first magazine advertisement. And of course, this is going to be a full bleed portrait-oriented magazine ad that you'll create using InDesign. So you'll need to reflect some of the design choices that you make in this ad in the other 2 pieces that you'll create in the coming weeks. So creating that campaign consistency, that very campaign-oriented look that you want to keep consistent throughout all of these pieces to make it apparent that it is all part of the same campaign. So rubric criteria is listed here. You'll want to make sure you include a tagline. So you probably chose one when you created your mood board. So that same tagline should be used through each piece. The copy for the magazine ad, which is in the design brief. So I highly recommend having this design brief open as you begin this. And if you scroll through, you'll see that the copy for the magazine ad is right here. Any variation of the vector logos provided in the brand style guide. So again, recommend that you have the brand guidelines open just to reference as you begin working on this. Company name and website URL, that's provided in the design brief. 3 to 5 high resolution images. You can use images from your mood board, you can select new ones, and you can optionally use illustrations or iconography from the brand style guide. You're going to be selecting the typography and colors. This will kind of reflect what you did in your mood board. And of course, you want to apply the brand rules as outlined in the brand style guide. Keep the target audience visual preferences in mind. Now, keep in mind this is also outlined in the design brief. So visual preferences of the target audience: simplicity, brevity, attention grabbing, imagery driven, reflecting racial and ethnic diversity. And be sure as you're choosing images to include those image attributions in the tracking spreadsheet, and you'll upload that with your ad. Keep in mind images should be at least 300 dpi. And then what to submit: the full bleed portrait oriented full color CMYK magazine ad created in Adobe InDesign, the PDF version of the magazine ad, and the attribution tracking spreadsheet. So if you haven't already, and I would assume that you have if you've done the mood board, grab the project client files and of course the tracking spreadsheet, and then you can get started. So I recommend, as you're getting started, have your mood board open that you created. I would also recommend opening the pieces that you plan to use in Illustrator. And I demonstrated this last week, how you can easily copy and paste the vector elements directly into InDesign. So any logos that you plan to use, any of the iconography you plan to use, shapes, patterns, that sort of thing, you can easily copy and paste from Illustrator directly into InDesign. which makes it pretty easy to use these pieces. So I created a sample ad, and you'll notice I have several pieces here, and 3 to 5 images is a lot. So don't feel like you really have to use a full 5 images. Sometimes you can say a lot with one large image. So you can see here I have the image of this couple. I have it in one of the shapes, and I also have an additional photo with, sort of that meal, enjoying a meal together kind of scene. I have the iconography added, and I have patterns added, just kind of in the background. They're not necessarily overpowering the layout, but they're just more of like a design element. So I also have some additional shapes to create sort of a call out box for this piece of text that tells the viewer about the Hunger Action Month link. We have the logo, and then I have the tagline. So you'll notice in my mood board, this is the tagline I created. So think about that. That's another thing as you go forward. That tagline, however you create this and stylize it. So I have it stylized with both of the fonts, so the Futura and then the Filmotype LaSalle, kind of echoing the fresh that's in the logo. So I want to make sure I use that look, that stylized look, through each one of my pieces. And just kind of viewing this, I'll go ahead and put this in normal view so you can kind of see how when I created this, I have a few things out, in the outside of the artboard area. So I took the pattern, I kind of ungrouped this, and I made it a little bit of a longer line here at the bottom. Of course, shapes are sort of bleeding outside of the lines. So just to kind of give you some ideas that will help you as far as your layout go. When you create your document, go to File, New Document. You're going to want to make sure that you choose inches as your units of measurement. So it'll be 8.625 by 10.75, portrait oriented. Now you'll notice here, margins may be set for you already, but I have my margin set at 0.5, which is the standard. And you'll hear me when I give feedback, I'll typically tell you to make sure you keep elements like text and logos inside the margin area. And this is just to keep important elements like text and logos from bleeding off the page inadvertently. So when you're making a full bleed ad, the process is that the page is trimmed to give it that illusion of the ink sort of bleeding off the edges of the page. So if you look at a magazine ad, you'll notice there's not typically a margin around those pages. You don't have, when you print something on a printer, you typically have that white border. In this case, it gets trimmed so that it has that illusion of that full bleed. So keeping important elements inside the margins is always a good idea. And I also have, if you scroll down, and you can open up this bleed and slug, I have my bleed set at 0.25. And this is the bleed area. This is that area outside of the page. And typically you want items to bleed to at least that area for that trim process. So if I create this page, you'll see that this is my bleed line and this is my margin area. So this is that 0.5, this is 0.25. And you can see when I go back to my ad that I created, this is, I have this kind of background color added in. I'm making sure to pull this out to that bleed line. And of course, I have some other elements that I'm making sure go to that bleed line as well, or outside of that bleed line. So those are all important things to take into consideration. I have my my logo, pretty tightly inside of that margin. I don't have any text outside of the margins. And that's just all for, like I said, that trim. And then also with magazines, you have the binding to kind of consider where the pages sort of meet each other. Sometimes elements can kind of get tucked into that and make it hard to read. So that's another reason to take margins into consideration as well. And one more piece to consider as you are getting ready to submit your ad. You will be submitting, of course, your InDesign file as well as a PDF. But I wanted to show you one quick thing, a way you can package your file so that both of those things are then included in your folder. So if you go to File, Package, you'll get a window that pops up. And if you select Package here, you can then determine where you want to save it and then hit the Package button. And this will create a folder that has your links, so any imagery that you're using, and all your files. So it has an InDesign markup document, InDesign document, and a PDF. So that's always a good practice as you prepare print files. Just putting everything into one packaged file, and you're welcome to zip that file and upload that, and that'll allow me to see any embedded imagery that you have in your InDesign file. And if you want me to take a look at your InDesign file and kind of give you some tips, that'll give me access to all of the elements that I would need that are included in your file. So that's another great step to take as you are preparing files like this. So hopefully this is a helpful starting point for you as you get started on your ad. And if you have any questions, just let me know.